Hey there, it's Whitney. Welcome back to another episode. I am excited to be doing this solo episode. I know it's been a minute. I have been doing a lot of interviews, having a lot of great conversations. I hope you've been enjoying them, but today I'm coming to you just one-on-one and personally, just letting you know, I am still in Medellin, Colombia, really enjoying my time here. And we're about to move Airbnbs, but because our Airbnb, we could only get it for, I think like six or 7 weeks. And now we got to move, which I'm sad about. If you've been following me on Instagram, we've had some fun bird encounters and some little gecko encounters. We'll see what the next place is like, but we are going to be still hanging out in Colombia for a couple months into the new year as well. So yeah, so that's what's going on with me personally. But let's talk about the topic at hand, which is really getting into kind of the nitty-gritty tech stuff of WordPress. Now, I get it. For many of you, you've got enough to learn and think about. And so getting into the tech of websites and the software involved and all of that is not something that you even want to be thinking about at all. So if that's you, then maybe this is an episode that you don't want to hear about so much. But you may want to just kind of be assured that my team and I know what we're doing, because we handle all of this for our clients who come through our program, the Wellness Pro website system. So we set up WordPress, we set up the theme, we set up all the plugins that are needed, we configure them so that you don't have to worry about that. But you still may want to know, okay, well, what plugins are they putting on the site? Why are they doing that? What is a plugin? So this is just some good background. Anyway, so let's dive in. So first, if you haven't heard me talk about WordPress and different platforms, maybe you want to go back to episode 1 where I talk about WordPress and why I work with WordPress exclusively over other platforms. It is just going to be the best for the long-term growth and flexibility of your business, because you can add all of these new functions and functionality to the website that you just really can't do with these other platforms like Squarespace and Wix and Showit. Also, WordPress just generally, we've seen it performs a lot better with SEO and in Google than the other platforms. So why do we need to go through all of this software talk, and how come no one talks about any of this when it comes to Squarespace? Well, the reason of that, and also one of the reasons that WordPress is so great and why I like it over a platform, and I'll just keep talking about Squarespace specifically. So Squarespace is like a closed system. So you sign up and they install their software on their hosting. They already have all of the functionality that they want to give you and allow you to have baked into the website that you purchase from them, the website subscription. And then they are going to manage all of that software and have it running. It's just like any other kind of software subscription that you sign up to, and you can pay more to get more features added, and it is what it is. So the benefits of that, of course, are that they're handling all of it. They're making those decisions of what features and functionality they're going to give to you, and they're making sure that it's always working and keeping it updated. But of course, you can probably see where this is going. The problem is that they made these decisions for you, and maybe you want to make different decisions about things that you want to do with your website. Well, if Squarespace decided that that wasn't important for them to have in the website platform, then you don't have access to it, and there's nothing you can do about it because it's not open source. And that's what WordPress is. WordPress is open source. So anyone can develop plugins, and plugins are basically pieces of code that add functionality to your website. So if you want to, and I'll give some examples, but even if you want a firewall or more security measures, there is a developer out there who has built a plugin that has code that when you upload that plugin to your website, it's going to put that code on your website and it's going to do additional things. Before there were plugins, if you wanted to add functionality to your WordPress site, you would hire a developer and actually have them code that for you yourself. So luckily we don't have to do that anymore. So the sky is the limit. There are so many plugins, and I will talk about choosing plugins and how to be careful about picking plugins, but there are so many different plugins out there for you to just add lots of different things to your WordPress site, depending on what you want to do. If you want to do a membership, want to have a shop, want to have recipes, want to have some gated content. You can do all of those things with WordPress. And you can do some of those things with Squarespace. I'm not saying that Squarespace is limited in its functionality, but there are definitely barriers to it, and it's just not as flexible. So when it comes to WordPress, there's 3 layers of software that come with it. So first, there is the base software WordPress. That is free software. Now, I am talking about WordPress.org. WordPress.com is very similar to Squarespace. It's a closed system. You purchase a subscription or you sign up for a subscription. The WordPress software is installed, but it's installed on WordPress's own hosting servers, and they control what you can do and all of that. So that's not what I'm talking about. I would not say that WordPress.com is a good solution as a website platform. So WordPress.org, that software is freely available online. They're continually updating it. And then what you do is you install that software on a server. And so you pick where you want to host your website. Now, with our clients, we do all the hosting for you, so you don't have to figure that out, because that is another area that can be confusing. Which website host is the best host? We offer all of our hosting through SiteGround. It's just a provider that has great customer service. They're fast, they're secure, they keep their software up to date. So we've used them for years, and we basically resell. We have a very large private server account with them, and we put our websites on that. And it's like a premium hosting, basically. So it's very fast, even more secure. And that's where we put our clients' websites. So you install the software with WordPress, and then you need to have a theme. And then you need to add, if you want, other functionality. And that's where plugins come in. So it's those 3 layers. So basically, when you download WordPress and you put it on your hosting, it's kind of like a plain cake that you bought from the bakery. It's just there. It's fine as it is. But if you want to customize it, make it a little flashy, do some different things with it, you are going to start customizing it from there. And that's where making these choices of themes and plugins comes in. Now, before I talk about what we choose for themes and plugins, I want to just talk about best practices for selecting these in general. So first off, we want to be picking plugins and themes that are widely used by a lot of people. We want them to be updated frequently by the developers, because what can happen is if a piece of software is neglected by the developers, there are hackers and nefarious actors out there all the time that are trying to find ways to exploit software vulnerabilities. And so if you are not updating your software, there could be a vulnerability in there that wasn't one before, but the hackers figured out, hey, here's a new way to hack into a website and take it over. And the developers, if they are keeping up with their software, they are being kept aware of these new changes that they need to make to their software to keep it secure. And so they are issuing releases and they've updated the code. And then you get a little notice on your WordPress dashboard saying, hey, there's an update for this software. We take care of all of those updates on a weekly basis for our clients. If there is a security concern or issue, we'll update even more frequently than that. But there are also just other updates, bug fixes, new functionality that a developer is adding to their plugin. So you want to keep your software update. So that's the big thing. We really want it to be something current. We want it to be used by a lot of people, because that means obviously that it's probably pretty good and reliable and bug-free. And it's going to mean that it's more compatible with other pieces of software, other plugins, and all of that. And we also wanted to have good documentation and support, like tutorials. And if you have a question, now sometimes a lot of these plugins are free, and so the support you're going to get is limited because you're not paying anything for it. But if you are paying for the plugin or the theme, then you want there to be support so you can ask questions if something is going wrong, or at least there's a forum that is active. It's not like the last question was posted 3 years ago, So we want things to kind of be actively used, be used by a lot of people, have some support and help tutorials. So if you run into issues, you can get yourself out of a jam. So all of that stuff is good. I would also say the less plugins, the better on your website. So just because there are a lot of plugins out there does not mean you need all of them. A lot of times people will add plugins to their sites that actually they don't need, and it's doing duplicative functionality. For example, with Divi, you can add the Google Analytics code to Divi just straight from there. But there is a plugin, Monster Insights, that people can use to also add the Google code to their site. But if you are on one of our websites and our websites are using Divi, then the code is already there. You don't need to have this other plugin, because when you think about it, plugins are all code. And so the more code you add to your website, the more problems there could happen, because if there are updates to that code, you got to make sure everything's playing nice and working together. It can also make your site slow if there's just a lot of code needing to load in the background before a page loads for a visitor. So it can really decrease the performance and experience for your website. Things can break more easily, conflicts can happen, and it's just a lot more to manage. So I always like the less plugins, the better. And what we're really doing is picking ones for us that are based on security, adding some cool functionality that's helpful, and also things that are going to help with the performance of your site and just make it run faster and better and all of that. So without further ado, let's dive into the tech stack and themes and plugins that we put on our websites. So first, I'll start with the theme and page builder. Now, there are some themes out there, and themes, there's lots of different modalities for themes. There's some themes that are very rigid, they're hard-coded, and you just enter your text into specific spots and that's it. You can't move things around. This photo goes here, you can't move it to another section. And then there's all the way, so that's like the most rigid and structured. And then there's the themes that work with plugins, page builders, that are going to allow you to drag and drop and move things around. So we like using Divi, which is from Elegant Themes, and we use their theme and page builder combo. We've also used Elementor in the past, and generally with these page builders, like Divi, it comes with its own theme, but if you're doing Elementor, you really just need like a lightweight theme, because and lightweight, I mean not complicated. It doesn't need to have a lot of bells and whistles, because you're using the page builder to really do most of the heavy lifting. But a theme is what sets out the structure for your website and what the pages are going to look like. What is your header, your navigation going to look like? What's your footer going to look like? What are your blog posts going to look like? So if you get a theme where that's all built in, then those are all set and you basically just put your content in and it's good to go. But a lot of people like having a lot more flexibility, myself included. And so having a page builder allows you to basically move and customize everything without having to code. So it's a theme and page builder combo that work together with Divi, and that is what we use for the site. So I would say those are probably my top recommendations. If you are looking at other themes out there, I would just be careful with how much flexibility you have. I've also seen themes where they're really good for blogs, but they're pretty rigid for building pages. And if you are selling anything from your website, be it services or a course or a product or group programs, you're going to want to spend more time telling the story and connecting with people through your copy and having longer pages with more content. And if the theme does not give you the ability to make really nice looking landing pages and a really well formatted homepage, then I would steer clear of that. But if you are really just blogging and you never see the need for having any sales pages, then maybe some of those more basic themes are good for you. So that's it in terms of themes. You only need one. So now let's move into the plugins. So a lot of these plugins, well, some of them are related to our specific hosting or the Divi theme. So for example, we have the Monarch plugin that's also from Elegant Themes that comes with the Divi theme, and it allows you to have social sharing buttons on your site, like on your blog posts. So when someone likes your blog post, they can share it to Facebook or they can share it to Pinterest or whatever the case may be. So that's a plugin we have. So that's additional functionality that isn't something that's built into the theme, because the theme is really about the structure and the design. It does have some functionality in it, but not not everything. So we have that social sharing plugin. One thing that Divi does already have in though, built in, is a form builder. And so I've seen some sites where they have an additional form like Gravity Forms or Ninja Forms and all of that. If you're using Divi, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to need any kind of form builder plugin. But the ones that I just mentioned could be useful if your theme, for whatever reason, doesn't give you a form builder and you really want to have that maybe for an intake form or a contact form on your website, or you want to do some more intricate forms that maybe are not part of the functionality that is built into your theme. Another plugin that we use a lot is the redirection plugin. And this is basically allowing you to manage the page redirection. So let's say, for example, you had a page or you had a blog post and then you decided you didn't want it anymore and you wanted to delete it. Totally fine to delete it. But if it's been indexed by Google, which if your site's been around for a bit, then it probably has been, what's going to happen is it's going to be a 404 page. And honestly, it's going to be a 404 for everyone, but Google is the one we care about the most, although we don't want broken links for our site visitors either. But we want to send people, if they do happen to, maybe they had that blog post bookmarked, or they had that page bookmarked, or that page was linked from another place that you just didn't remember to go and change. We want to redirect traffic from that old link to a new link. Let's say you changed your services around and you had a service that was private coaching, but now you've transitioned to group coaching. And now you want anyone who was ever going to the private coaching page to now go to the group coaching page. So you would just set up a simple redirect. It's very easy with this plugin to do that. And just absolutely for Google search engine ranking perspective, you definitely want to make sure that any pages you delete or any pages where you change the URL, you want to have a redirect set up. So this is a very important plugin. Like I said, we use it a lot. And then we have some SiteGround plugins specific from our hosting. So we have an optimizer that's going to just do various optimizations on the site. It's pretty technical, but caching and other things that are going to make the site run faster and just be more optimized for speed and for visitors coming to the site and the page loading and the site loading and all of that. So that's a plugin that we have. SiteGround Security is also a plugin. It is something that we actually use with another security plugin, WordFence. I highly recommend everyone using WordFence on their site. You can get the free version, which I think is good. You do want to configure it and set it up. So that's something we do when we install our sites for our clients. But basically, it's a firewall. It's blocking traffic from known nefarious IP addresses. It can also block login attempts from people who are not registered on the site. It can even deactivate or block an IP address if there's been more than a couple failed login attempts, because we just don't want a hacked site. It really is not a fun thing to have a site hacked. We've never had any of our sites hacked. And I think that's a lot due to the security features that we have on the site and following these best practices. So SiteGround Security is another plugin we have. We also use the Smash Balloon Instagram feed, and that is to display the Instagram feed on the site. So pretty self-explanatory. That's one we have. Smush is another plugin that we use, and this is for also optimization. So it's going to compress your images and optimize your images so that they will be the right size and the right size for the site and page to load quickly. Because a lot of times, we take a photo on our phone, or we get a photo from a photographer, or we download something from a stock image site. First off, sometimes those images are like 12 megabytes. And this free version of Smush, you need to have the photo already be only 1 megabyte, the file size to be only 1 megabyte in size. You can go to tinypng or tinyjpeg.com and have that compressed, or you can compress it on your computer. And that's something we teach our students about in our course. It's very simple, and it's just a best practice to not be uploading really large files to your site. Definitely, you never want to upload a video to your site. Those are many, many megabytes in size. But even for photos, we want them to be as small as possible. And so this way, after you upload that image, Smush is actually going to further optimize it and smush it even smaller. It's still going to look great. It's going to retain the clarity of the image, but it's going to make sure that the size is not too big so that the page loads as quickly as possible. Now, the next one we do is we use stackable Gutenberg blocks. So if you are with it and hip to WordPress, a couple years ago, WordPress introduced some page builder functionality themselves, and they called it the Gutenberg editor. And some sites will be built entirely with Gutenberg blocks. But personally, I still find them pretty hard to use. That's why we use Divi and the page builder. But you can use Gutenberg like on your blog post to make your blog post look a little bit nicer. We do not use page builders for blog posts because we want those blog posts to load really quickly and we don't want to have a lot of extra code. So we use the page builder just to create the theme of how the sidebar of the blog is going to look, how the top of the blog is going to look, but then the actual blog content itself is just built right within the Gutenberg editor in WordPress. But sometimes you want to have some pretty things in your blog, like you want to have a little embedded block that is a call to action to your newsletter or to a specific lead magnet, or maybe a masterclass or some other kind of offer or thing that you want to do and you want it to look nice. So we have Gutenberg blocks from Stackable, and this just allows us to easily make some nicer looking blocks that you can reuse and insert into your blog posts. And they're not going to add a lot of extra code to those posts so that they can still be very fast. And then speaking of other things to be adding into your blog posts, we also really like WP Recipe Maker. And I will say all of these plugins are free. There are a lot that have premium options, and you can always explore what those are and you can decide if you want to upgrade. But we've been using WP Recipe Maker on websites for years. There are so many websites out there and blogs that are using it as well. And the great thing about WP Recipe Maker is it allows you to format the recipe so that it looks really nice. You know, you've probably been on these blogs where, you click jump to recipe and it's formatted in a recipe card format. It's really great as an end user, as a visitor to a blog, to access the recipe that way. But also search engines really love it because it adds code in the background of your blog that is telling Google, hey, this is a recipe. Whereas if you were to just type out your ingredients and steps in the body of your blog post, but not do anything special, it's not going to be get picked up by Google as an actual recipe. And for search engine optimization, if you are a blogger and you are putting recipes out there, you definitely want Google to know that you are putting recipes out there. So it's a really helpful way to do it, to both make the customer experience really great and to make it much better for search engine optimization. So that is a plugin that you can use. You put your recipes in there and then you embed that recipe into your blog post. And then just to wrap it up here, we also use Updraft Plus, which is a backup restore plugin. Now, we are backing up all of our client sites to the cloud every single day. We really want to be backing up our sites to a place other than our server. Now, for us, we have server backups. We are backing up, like I said, to the cloud in another location. But if you are ever managing your website yourself, you never want to be just backing your site up to the same place that it's already hosted. Because if your site is hacked and they get into your main hosting code and software, then your backups might get corrupted and infected as well. Or if your server goes down and all of your content is lost and your backups were also stored in that same place, guess what? They're gone too. And restoring from a backup is the fastest way to overcome a hack. But we want to be also making sure that we're monitoring the site regularly. So frequent backups are really helpful. Frequent security scans are really helpful. That's where WordFence comes in, because it's letting us know. We also have other security monitoring tools on our client sites that's letting us know if there's any alerts or anything like that. And then we jump on it right away. And then we can resolve it, confirm if it's a false positive, or if we need to restore from the previous day's backup to basically get that code or whatever change happened to the site that caused it to be vulnerable, we can restore it. So having backups is just super, super helpful. I have definitely heard business owners who have had all of their content lost. And honestly, if you set up this backup, that should just never happen. So Updraft Plus is great because yes, it does allow you to back up to your server, but ideally what you do is you connect it to another location like your Google Drive or to Dropbox. There's a few options that they offer, and you can have it back up daily, weekly. You can have it keep the 2 previous copies of your backup and delete them, because obviously as you're changing your site, you don't need to have backups that are necessarily, months and months old. But again, if you are not monitoring your site security regularly and it takes you 2 months to find out that your site was hacked, then you're going to want to have those backups from a while ago. So it's kind of a twofold approach. You do want to be monitoring your site and catching these things so that you can then act on them. But a backup is really great. Your hosting will probably offer backups as well, which is fine and good. And they are probably backing up to a different location, but then where your site is actually hosted. But still, I would just always have another backup for yourself. I've covered WordFence already, so that is just another plugin that is going to be security related. We also have WP Sweep, which is just to kind of clean up the database and remove the bloat of things, because as you change things on your site, sometimes that's going to create new files and old things and cached things, and we just don't want to have extra stuff in the database of your site because that's just adding to the size of it. And again, the less size, the faster everything loads. And then finally, no WordPress discussion would be complete without saying you need to have some kind of SEO tool. And so we use Yoast. We use, again, the free version. They do have a premium version as well. And this allows you to put a keyword into each of your pages and blogs and have it assess how well you have optimized that content for that keyword. And it's going to give you some suggestions. And then you can use that tool to customize the title that you want your blog or page to have in search engine results. For example, your homepage on your site, it's just home. But for search engines, you probably want to put some keywords in there. Maybe you want to put your business name. So it allows you to do more of that customization. So it's a really great, powerful tool to just optimize your site for search engines. And a few other honorable mentions. These are not ones that we necessarily add to our sites right off the bat, but a few others that can be really helpful. So Bloom is another plugin that comes from Divi, and that is for pop-ups. It's a fine plugin for that. Although if you use ConvertKit, then I would recommend using the pop-ups in ConvertKit. And you do not need to put the pop-up or the ConvertKit plugin on your WordPress site in order to integrate ConvertKit with your website. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes these different providers will say, oh, we have a plugin for that, but it turns out you don't really need it. Again, less plugins, the better. So again, pop-ups, if you do want to use them and have opt-ins on your site, then I always recommend ConvertKit in general as an email provider because it just is easy to use. I think there is a free option, and then the cost for it is not too much. I like it much better than MailChimp these days. And then it does play really nicely with WordPress. But if you are also looking for another easy pop-up option, then Bloom, which comes from Elegant Themes and Divi, is good. And then another plugin that we really like and that we use in our business every day is Pretty Links. And this is like a link shortener. I don't know if you remember back in the day, like Bitly, where you could just plug in any website URL and then it would shorten it into a nice little short, easy, you could customize it to say whatever you want, bit.ly/Whitney, for example. Now, with Pretty Links, you are using the front end is going to be your domain name, so whitneybateson.com, and then I can have a link to a ConvertKit landing page where it's a little bit longer and put that in and then convert that to a Pretty Link where it's going to be like one of my opt-ins is a profit planner, and it has a URL in ConvertKit, but we've shortened it to just whitneybateson.com/profit. And that is a Pretty Link, and it goes to then the ConvertKit. So it's like a redirection, but it's just a little bit easier than a redirection. And it's also basically allowing you to just create new links. Whereas redirection is a little bit more like, okay, this link that exists on my site, I want it to redirect to this other link. So Pretty Link is kind of like a redirection tool, but also not. And so also if you work with affiliates and you want to give them customized links to places on your site or any kind of links that you want to give them, you can also use Pretty Links. So I like that plugin a lot. WP Rocket is another optimization plugin, which can be very powerful, but I will just put a cap. It takes some time to get the settings right. So if you are not super familiar, it's good to get someone to help configure that for you, because sometimes you can go too far and it can mess up formatting on your site and cause things not to load and be a little wonky. So it's kind of like a fine tuning thing, but it can be really great for just vastly improving the site speed for your website. And then finally, WooCommerce is a plugin that you can use if you are wanting to have a shop. That one specifically is very powerful, but it also can be pretty complicated and can cause things to break on your site and all of that. These other plugins, generally, they don't break very often, but WooCommerce, with it just being so complex, and especially the more complex your setup is, then, it can be a little tough. So I would use that one sparingly. If you are just selling a few things, like I have Thrivecart. I use Thrivecart as my cart. So we do not have a checkout built into our website through WooCommerce. We actually use Thrivecart. And that way, that software is all encompassing. Now, granted, there are some things that I want to do with Thrivecart that I can't do. And that's because I'm using their platform. I didn't build it on my own platform with WooCommerce. And it's possible that things that I want to do with my checkout, I maybe could do with WooCommerce if I was configuring it completely from scratch on my site with WooCommerce. But I'm willing to deal with it. And so right now we continue to use Thrivecart. Same with courses. There are course platforms and membership, or there's course plugins and membership plugins. And I think that can be an option on WordPress as well for you. But I think the use case needs to be, have you already tried the other pre-built softwares out there and found that none of them work for you and don't do the things that you want? I think that is the use case to then move to building it from scratch on your website. But the great thing is that because you're on WordPress, you know that if you do ever get to that point, then you can build it on your site. So for me, if my business continues to evolve and I decide, you know what, I don't like Thrivecart anymore for my cart, I really do want to custom build my cart, I could do that straight on WordPress on my own website if I wanted to. Same with our course. We use Kajabi right now. It's expensive and it's kind of limited in some of the things that it allows. So I could always say, you know what, I actually want to build my course now fully on our website, have it self-hosted and build it out so it's exactly to my specs and my liking. So those are just some options. All right, so just to wrap it up here, this was all just a little background on how we set up sites and what technology and software we like to include on the sites we build for our students. We also, in our program, include guidance about picking plugins and how to add your own plugins, because after we set up your site with these basic functionalities and plugins, of course, there may be a time where you want to add more to your site, and you are free to do that on your own. Of course, you can always, everyone who is on our maintenance and hosting plan can always come to us and ask us questions if you're not sure, if you need some help picking a plugin or configuring it. We'll always be there to help. That's the great thing about continuing to work with us and have us be your tech team. But you're also free to do that yourself. But if you come into our program, then we are figuring all of this out for you, picking the plugins, picking the themes. We're doing the hosting, so you just don't have to worry about it, and you have all that customer support from us. So if that's something you're interested in, you can go to find out more about our program. It's called the Wellness Pro Website System. And you can go to the link in our show notes to learn more about it and get on the wait list to find out when doors are opening next. And if you want a list of all of these plugins and who they're made by, in case you want to check them out for yourself, then you can go to the show notes to get all that info. All right, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope I didn't put you to sleep or overwhelm you, but hopefully this was just some good insights and behind the curtain look at what goes into the websites that we build. So I will see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening.